Hi, I'm Rob Vanstone. Welcome to the 74th edition of the Leader Post Rider Rumblings podcast. I am here, as always, with my worthy constituent, Dr. Murray McCormick, Rough Rider beat writer extraordinaire. Each week, we pick a rider uniform number from today or yesteryear to correspond with the number of the podcast, this being number 74. McKenna Henry is the current Rough Rider. Chris DeFrance, once upon a time, wore number 74. Dan Rasevich, Red Ettinger, also from the 1950s, Stan Williams. So here's the number 74 of the Rough Riders. And here's the number 17 of the Rough Riders, Joey Walters, who in 1981 and 82 was part of a prolific receiving duo alongside, slot-back tandem alongside Chris DeFrance, number 74. It's Joey Walters' 65th birthday today. So Joey, happy birthday from us and I'm sure from the entire Rider Nation. A game of some significance. On Saturday at 2 p.m. at Mosaic Stadium, the Edmonton Eskimos are here to face the Rough Riders, and there's only first place at stake for the Rough Riders. This doesn't happen very often. In the life of Gaynor the Gopher, who was born in 1977, the Riders have only finished first once, that being 2009. They won a game against Calgary 30-14 on November 7th, 2009 to clinch first place in the West. A somewhat comparable scenario awaits. They beat Edmonton on Saturday. First place is theirs.
How many Grey Cups have they won in that time?
They've won 3 Grey Cups while finishing first place once.
I think it was interesting reading Brendan Tamman's column today about first place and how little it actually means. I always find this year kind of funny that we spend a whole lot of our time making a big deal out of the regular season, and then all they talk about is the importance of the home playoff game and playing in the playoffs. So it's just a little thing. I think there's no reason why they shouldn't win this game on Saturday. I think they proved maybe they can get in a longer second half again, or halftime break. They pretty well played into the Riders' hands because the Eskimos had all the momentum going into Saturday's halftime break, and then that lasted the fireworks to plays and the power outage and stuff, and the Riders came out they're playing like the old team. So maybe if they get some halftime show that extend things, maybe it'll work out.
Oh, once upon a time, I think you almost rely if they were playing at the old stadium, maybe they could hope for power outage or something. Well,
it's kind of, I thought, and there's no announcement until a couple of minutes till they're actually back on the field. I thought it was because the lights were turned down because of the fireworks, which who has a fireworks display at halftime, which is another bit of a thought. But I also thought about Mosaic Stadium. It's all LED lighting, so it's just switching on the switch and switching it off. So that's Mosaic Stadium, or Commonwealth's the 76, I think it was built.
It opened for the 70. The first major event was it was 78.
78.
They had the Commonwealth Games there in 78, and I went to the last regular season game at Clark Stadium in 1977. The Riders lost 38-0. It wasn't a
but
good
it's still an older stadium.
Walters had an interception that day.
Good for that. So it was still an older stadium, still a beautiful stadium as far as I'm concerned. It's still one of the treasures in the CFL, but that doesn't have anything to do with it. But come Saturday, it's going to be white. It's going to be wintry. It's, following on the heels of the Heritage Classic, it's going to be a winter football game regardless. And I don't think any reason why the Riders shouldn't win that. The Eskimos have nothing to play for, nothing other than to avoid injuries and maybe get Trevor Harris a little better tuned up because his second half wasn't, he got the tiny touchdown.
You never know, though. The final game of the 1976 regular season, the Riders could clinch first by beating Calgary, winning in Calgary. And Calgary was having a horrible season. They had nothing to play for. And the Riders did not lead that game until Ron Lancaster hit Rhett Dawson for a 3-yard touchdown pass on the final play from scrimmage. And that was a Calgary team that had nothing to play for. And the Riders trailed 24-0 and 27-8. So I don't think you can presume a victory here just because Edmonton's not playing for anything. Because back in November 76, Calgary wasn't playing for anything, and they threw a real scare into the Riders that day.
And don't you think they're trying to stay healthy? They want to get sharp for the playoffs. It's almost like a preseason game, playing for the first half.
No, it's not.
No, Edmonton is.
Oh, for Edmonton, okay.
Sorry, Edmonton is. Yeah, Edmonton playing for the first half, see what they do, and then the second half, trot out Logan Kilgore and all those guys, and just sort of. Unless there's a lot of pride. I think Jason Maas has a lot of pride, and he wants to beat the Riders. They would love to have the Riders finish second. They can, or wherever they're going to end up, and not first. So I think that's.
Well, it doesn't really matter to them, though. No, somebody's going to finish first. It's just not going to be Edmonton.
But it just. What did you think of Edmonton on Saturday, Rob?
I thought they played pretty well, at least in the first half. Trevor Harris, to the extent that he plays, if he plays at all, is a puzzle. Yeah. He gets rid of the ball so quickly.
Yeah.
And it's easy to say, the Riders didn't get any pressure on Trevor Harris, and they didn't. But how do you get pressure on him?
Yeah.
It's no different than, remember when Ottawa came here last year, and they won. And Trevor Harris had one of those days where he was on, and you couldn't get to him. Bang, bang, ball's gone. And that's what he did by and large to the Rough Riders on Saturday when he was effective. And so there's that puzzle if you're facing Trevor Harris for any duration. He just gets rid of the ball so fast that you can't get pressure on him. So the issue becomes you'd better be able to cover.
Yeah, but also keep him off the field. And I think we have to give the Riders a bit of offense, a bit of credit for staying on the field for extended drives that kept Trevor Harris not in position until later in the game when he got that tying touchdown. But the offense was on the field a lot, which is something we're still getting used to, and I think that's kind of overlooked. Cody Frigerator gets his 4th game-winning drive, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. When it's how he's doing this. Do you think he's doing it with smoke and mirrors, or how do you think he's doing this?
After a while, it stops being. If you do it once or twice, okay. That can happen, but when you do it repeatedly as well as he has done, and it's not like he's walking into gift wrap situations. Look at where the Riders started with the ball inside their 10-yard line. Yeah. It's no different than the Labor Day game, and he marches them systematically down the field and makes key second down passes. That pass to Naaman Roosevelt. Oh yeah, that was an absolutely beautiful pass. It's not going to knock you out in terms of numbers. It was a modest gain, what they needed at the time, but what an amazing throw.
That Winnipeg pass when he completes one to Kyron Moore for 7 yards and takes him out of the shadow of the goalpost. Not in the big picture things. It's a 7-yard reception, but it's a 7-yard reception that now you're not backed up against your goal line and you have room to move. So, and I think we talk about Cody Frigerator a lot. I'm wondering if we should start talking about Stephen McAdoo a little bit more, because that was all passing plays on that last drive. And all good plays and you threw a couple away. Cody made a couple calls, but this time last year we were kind of ready to barbecue Stephen McAdoo because of the way the offense was performing. But this year they're rolling, and he's taken a first-year quarterback starter, and turned him into an MOP candidate. And I know Steve Walsh too, but Stephen McAdoo's making the calls, and that was a great, well-designed, well-called drive. I don't think you can. The Winnipeg one was a good one. The one against Hamilton where Cody scored was a good one. The one against Montreal was another good drive. So maybe, I'm not saying he's perfect or anything, but maybe Stephen McAdoo does a little love from Rider Nation.
Take a look at his body of work. 2016 is a write-off because they didn't have an offensive line. They couldn't protect Darian. Although Darian still set a franchise record that season for completion percentage.
Did he really?
Yeah, and it kind of flew under the radar.
That's a number you would find.
Final season as a Rough Rider, he set a single season record for completion percentage, which was then broken the following year by Kevin Glenn and will be broken this season by Cody Frigerator. Yep. So right off 2016. 2017, the Riders led the league in touchdown passes with 35. That was with Stephen McAdoo as the offensive coordinator. Yep. Last year was an absolute mess, but did anybody do Stephen McAdoo any favors? Look at the quarterbacking they had. Look at the receiving core they had. Shaq Evans has turned into a dominant receiver. Kyron Moore's turned into a terrific receiver. But they were both rookies at the time, and they just didn't have much of a receiving core.
Naaman Roosevelt came back. He didn't have his typical season that he's having right now.
No. So
wasn't utilized as well as he should have.
He's got some weapons. I think Craig Dickinson has done Stephen McAdoo some favors that Chris Jones didn't do him, as far as I think just allowing him to. You're not saddling him with substandard personnel. Craig Dickinson has made sure that the offense has the personnel that's required to succeed. Stephen McAdoo has taken it from there. Riders have 25 rushing touchdowns. They had 25 offensive touchdowns all of last season. They've got 43 offensive touchdowns. They had 40 touchdowns, period, all of last season, and that includes 15 that weren't from the offense. So Stephen McAdoo, I think if you look at the body of work, as much criticism as he absorbed last year, he's done an admirable job here.
Is he head coaching material? Would you think people start looking at him for that? Is this enough of a season to give him, he wants to be a head coach, and there's going to be openings, we assume. Yeah. I wonder if people start looking at him for that again. I think he got a little bit. He might have talked to the Riders a little bit. I don't know how far it is.
Well, he is the assistant head coach here.
Yeah, so he's got he has that.
He was interviewed for the job. I think Stephen McAdoo would be a good head coach because nothing gets to him, nothing flusters him. He's good at kind of just ignoring the noise, such as that which we are creating. He'll accept the criticism if it's there and realize it's part of the job. And if there's laurels, he doesn't bathe in the adulation. He just does his job. He's got the kind of level head and demeanor, I think, and certainly resume and knowledge that would make for a good head coach.
But that's
we
down
didn't
the
think
road.
we'd be talking about this a year ago, did we?
Yeah, that's down the road, a whole long ways down the road to think about things like that. But I think we got to talk about Zach Collaros on Friday night.
Good for him.
Good for him. Good for him. And what an amazing, that touchdown pass to Darvin Adams was just amazing.
Where was that guy last season?
He would never. I was looking at Calgary, and I was looking
we didn't
back.
see that Zach Collaros last year.
And he seems to have some luck against Calgary. Last year he had like 350 yards, some
394.
394 against Calgary in that game. Didn't throw a touchdown
Beat
pass.
Calgary twice last year.
I know. So he seems to have something going against Calgary. Everything else is, and good for the Bombers. They're in the event to help the Riders out, and it was like there's a lot of good games this year. That game on Friday night was well into the great and beyond, and into the classic level. You wanted to watch every play because you knew something was going to happen, and you're just going to say, "Wow, what an amazing play!" And Calgary's drive at the end of the first half was just boom, 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 right down the field, score a touchdown, and then Collaros steps up and outdoes them to win the game for them and keep the Riders.
And took some hits.
He took some hits too, yeah. Speaking of taking hits, I think Cody Fajardo took a lot of hits too.
Well, Derek Taylor did the numbers on the amount of times that Cody Fajardo was hit, and you could tell. I mean, he's one banged up quarterback, and I think that's also one benefit they can derive from securing first place on Saturday if they can do it. A week's rest for Cody Fajardo, especially the way he plays. The playing surfaces are less forgiving than at any other time in the year in November. And if he's going to play all out the way he always does, it's best to save him a week's worth of bumps and bruises.
I don't think people realize how solid he is, though. Some of his college days says he weighed 233 in college. I don't know if he weighs that now.
So did I.
Yeah, so did I guess so. But he's solidly built. And, he talked about how he's going to be in an ice bath a long time on Sunday, just trying to get his body back into shape. And I think he's good. He's played that way all his life. So bouncing back from a lot of hits, mind you, at the professional level, it's men hitting men, which is a whole other thing. But I think he'll bounce back quite fine. I don't know if the offensive line played that badly. It's just Edmonton's defensive line is really good.
Yeah, I mean, Armando Sewell does some things to plays that's what Armando Sewell does. I mean, one of the sacks was actually it was credited as a sack. It was actually Cody Fajardo positioning the ball for Brett Lowther and his game-winning field goals. Sometimes a botched run play ends up being credited as a sack.
Yeah. Well, I thought in the stats it said team loss. It didn't say sack.
I thought it said sack.
Okay, I'll have to double check that. Because I was looking at
maybe it was on the CFL website as I was following the game live.
Yeah,
I was actually at the hockey game at the time.
I know. So that was we can maybe.
It said at that point Cody Fajardo sacked.
No, it wasn't a sack because it said in the stats team loss.
So, I apologize.
That's all right. We can all make a little mistake.
But no, I think the discussion now has become, is Cody Fajardo the most outstanding player in the Canadian Football League? And that's what I wrote in Monday's paper and on Saturday.
And I think you wrote it a couple times earlier than that too. I think. But I mean, banging that drum hard, buddy.
You look at what he's done, and the game changer he has been for the Saskatchewan-Roughriders. I know Brandon Banks is having a sensational year in Hamilton, but honestly, who's had a bigger effect on their team this season?
But it's the most outstanding, and right now the most outstanding player in the CFL in my mind is Brandon Banks. Watching him on Saturday, he just owned that game. You look at him, how can he be that open? How can he be that fast? How can he do that? 3 touchdowns. He's the most outstanding player on arguably the best team in the league. It's kind of a hard guy to vote against. And as much as that Cody has accomplished and Cody will accomplish, I think Brandon Banks is... As
a first-year starting quarterback, he could be a first-place starting quarterback, 4 comeback victories, leads the league in passing yards, rushes for 10 touchdowns. I mean, Brandon Banks has scored, I think, 15 touchdowns in total. Cody Fajardo's scored 10 as a quarterback.
Yeah, that's a good point.
8 on designed
but
runs.
Brandon Banks has 1,500 receiving yards, which is pretty darn good. That takes him beyond the point of just being a great receiver. That takes him down there. And you take him off. Take either of those guys off either roster, and their teams are significantly weaker. So I guess, I have to still decide on that, on who I think I like what I've seen from Brandon Banks. I've also seen, and I know where the Riders would be without Cody Fajardo, and we wouldn't be talking about a home playoff game on Saturday. We
would be figuring garbage bag days on Tuesday.
Yes.
Or Monday.
Monday or Sunday.
Yeah.
That they've had before. And
the season would have been in a garbage
And people
bag.
don't weigh in, and I know we're not.
I don't want to weigh in.
What
My diet's gone to...
What he does away from the field, too. And I know it's not part of the award, but that's pretty significant, too. He's somehow elevated the quarterback position, which is a high-pressure, high-profile position, the people want to be part of it. They want to meet him. They know him. He tells us stories. He lets us inside to see what he's like. He'll be like, I found his comments about the new contract. Was there pressure? Darn right there was pressure on him.
Yeah.
I felt I'm thinking,
Who says that?
How's that refreshing to hear a guy say, yeah, I felt pressure. And I keep thinking, I hear this kind of stuff. And every day you get in a scrum with Cody and you hear him say something that says, yeah, he really is a normal guy who happens to have extraordinary skills. And that comment about feeling pressure, that's gold.
Yeah.
And you think about the week, he goes from signing the contract to leading the Rough Riders back on a game-winning drive and never really showing the pressure.
No, even when there was adversity, he fumbles on the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
They had the botched third down gamble.
Yeah.
There were things that didn't go their way. And Commonwealth Stadium has historically not been a great place for the Rough Riders to play.
I've been there for some whippings.
And,
some whoopings, boy.
But so you're trailing 17-7 at halftime, and then he comes out in the third quarter and starts doing what Cody Frigerator does and leads a game-winning drive. That's what he does. I can't imagine what kind of plight the Rough Riders would be in without him.
Well,
what's the baseball term? Wins above replacement?
Well, maybe if Edmonton had pursued him instead of Logan Kilgore, maybe we have Logan Kilgore here, which is kind of an interesting thought.
Or, who knows?
Who knows? But if he hadn't decided. But I somehow think when the Riders come courting, a lot of players start listening because they've seen the stadium, they've seen the crowd base, they've seen what you can do. And they see there's a little bit of money to be made here too. And I don't think don't overlook that. It's still a professional organization. There's still jobs on the line.
Well, if you look at Cody Frigerator, he's going to make north of $400,000 next year.
Yeah.
But what's his gross income going to be? When you factor in what he can do in the off season, what the endorsements that he can get, I think you're talking about somebody who by the end of at the end of the day, when you just total up his accumulated income, I'm not sure he'll be making much less than Mike Rowley or Bo Levi Mitchell. When you look at everything he can cash in on in Saskatchewan,
yeah.
I mean, honestly, this could be a gold mine for him.
I don't know if he's going to stay here in the off season this first year, and I think because his wife's.
Yeah, but he can come up here and
do
blow off a week's worth of sports banquets, and there's some nice money for the IRS to look at.
Yeah,
so
he does have an opportunity. Defense. Let's just run this quickly through. Defensive Charleston Hughes.
Yeah. Not the overwhelming choice that he appeared to be a month ago. If Solomon Alamimian hadn't missed the first few games, there might be a debate here.
If he hits his average, he only had 2 defensive tackles on Saturday, I think, and he's not going to quite hit 100.
He needs 18 to get there.
He needs 18. That's going to take.
But had he not missed early in the season, Solomon Alamimian would be in line for another 100.
Another guy you say is a leader. The guys follow him and they respect him. Canadian will go to. I think it's.
I'd like to put in for defense. Nick Marshall is really playing well.
Yeah.
He had an awful game in Ottawa week 2. Nick Marshall is having a tremendous year.
I'd like to throw in a plug for Mike Edom.
Yes.
He's having an amazing season, and he's getting sacks, he's blitzing, he's covering, he's doing everything, he's playing in the box, he's dropping back. On another year, he's definitely one of the guys in consideration.
Derek Moncrief was in the conversation earlier in the year.
Talk about maybe September, right?
Yeah.
But they slowed down a little bit.
What was the next category?
Canadian, we're going to go Canadian Cameron Judge, I think.
Because of Mike Edom, I don't think it's automatic, but Cameron Judge has become a terrific player.
Yeah, he really has. And so that's kind of automatic.
Dan Clark's, I think, worthy of discussion.
You got to throw in Thaddeus Coleman. I know he's had some tough holding penalties and whatnot, but I think in my mind I thought
we were talking about Canadian.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about offensive linemen. Who knows what we're talking about? And Dan Clark would be in the mix.
Mike Edom. Brett Lowther's made 3 game-winning kicks this year.
Yeah, I don't think he's in the
Mac Henry's played well when he's had the opportunity.
Yeah,
so there's a few. Corey Watson has had a good year.
Yeah,
so there's a few Canadians.
Not award-worthy.
No, but that's the field of Canada.
But I like Wade Cameron Judges. He moves, starts the year the middle linebacker sharing time with Sam Hurl, and then moves over to weak side when Solomon shows up, and boom, he just takes off, and he's doing. He also has 11 special teams tackles. So here's a guy who's a starter, plays all 4 teams on special teams. It's pretty impressive Canadian. He could be. Whatever it could be. The Canadian's a little interesting with him because he's kind of like your pseudo-Canadians, just the way the rules work, but that's still good for him. Offensive line, Dan Clark. Yeah.
Thaddeus Coleman's had this would be the Brendan Labatt Award had he been able to play for most of the year.
Well, I would think the way Dan Clark, I'm not going to forget where Dan Clark was in May 1st, early in May. He was a guy we're thinking, holy smokes, we may never play again, to fights his way back from training camp, gets on the field, hasn't missed a start, hasn't missed a game. But
if Brendan Labatt's there for the first year, he's probably, for the whole year, he's probably an all-star again. And then,
I think Dan might be an all-star too. It's that offensive line is so tough too.
And they've been such a state of flux there for most of the year. And their depth has paid off. And, Thaddeus Coleman's had a good year. They've pretty much everybody they put out there has helped.
Yeah, but
they wouldn't be putting up the numbers
Dan
that they
has
are.
Been solid every game.
He's been the one constant all year who's just, Thaddeus Coleman was a healthy scratch earlier in the year too, whereas
he's hurting though. He's moving pretty slowly off the field. I don't know how these guys sometimes.
Yeah, what a warrior he is.
Oh, the big guys. And what was the last one we had? Offensive, defensive, Canadian.
Special teams player?
Yeah.
I say John Ryan.
I don't think there's anybody else.
He's going to break the Rider record, barring a series of absolute negative yardage punts on Saturday. John Ryan's going to set a Rider record for punting average in a season. The record is 47.4 by Ken Clark. John Ryan's currently at 49. He'd been at 50 for most of the year. So I think John Ryan's a good candidate for special teams. Alexander Gagne's got 15 special teams. And he also does,
part of people don't realize he snaps on field goals. Because for some reason, John Ryan didn't like the snaps from field goals by Jordan Hughes. So they've somehow, Jordan Hughes snaps on punts. So overlooked. Yeah, Gagne's had a great season. And
they returned a couple of kicks for touchdowns. Lucius Purifoy's got one of the better kickoff return averages in the league. Marcus Thigpen also took one the distance. Brett Lowther doesn't have last year's numbers, but he's still having a really good year.
Yeah, but there's no one that I hate John Ryan's record to say there's holes in his game this year. I think the fact that his net punting average isn't where he should be, and he's not punting as much outside the numbers, and I know that's coverage, and there's all sorts of other issues, but he's not a lock in my mind. I think just because he's got that high punting average, and
he's going to break a record.
They're still adapting to him, though. I still think they're still trying to figure out what he's going to do, But I take that back. On Saturday, the weather conditions where he could dictate it with his strong leg, and I think that's where he's going to come through, and going to be his leg is so strong that in this weather, that's going to be like, obviously winter's here to stay. That I think it could be more of a, and I know the record is exciting, but even he talks about how the fact is he needs that net punting average to be.
Oh sure,
that's where the number he really.
But John Ryan's had a really good year.
He's had a really good, and he's going to be the specialist. I don't know who's going to happen across the league, but I think he's going to be. And do we get rookie?
Rookie Dakota Shepard.
Dakota Shepard. I was thinking of there was someone else whose name I looked at. Sean
Adowu.
Sean.
He's been good on special teams, has a sack, but
he's not.
This is Dakota Shepard.
And even the fact he's been bumped from this lineup because of Philip Blake's return and.
Dakota Shepard will be a starter for the next 12 or 13 years.
Yeah, do you think I think he's got one more year left on his contract too, because he signed 2 and an option, so they got him for another year.
I thought they signed him going into this season.
Oh yeah, I don't know. So, yes, you're right. I apologize. Sorry.
So
showing my age.
So
yeah. So he's got 2 more. That's what I'm thinking. 2 more seasons with him, and he's going to be good.
I mean, he's a foundational player for that offensive line, and who knows the way this season's gone?
We haven't voted on it yet, but Coach of the Year.
This is an interesting one. I'm really warming up to the Craig Dickinson.
Yes,
especially if he ends up finishing first, considering everything that was thrown in front of him, and he almost seemed like a default candidate for the job at one point. Yeah. The Riders wanted to talk to Paul LaPolice. They wanted to talk to Jamie Elizondo. They were denied permission to talk to either person. That's not to imply that they preferred either candidate to Craig Dickinson, but they were looking around. Craig Dickinson ended up getting the job. Look what he's done.
He's done. And what he's done, I like, and among other things, is how he's handled Cody, which is obvious. He lets his guys coach. He's not, there's no, and I'm not sure Chris Jones was as free with his guys. I think there was some.
Well, Chris Jones was his own guy when he came to the defense.
So he ran his own defense. But Jason Shivers just stood up. He's had an amazing season as a first-year DC. Stephen McAdoo, all these other guys, all these other coaches, they get to do their jobs, and then they come and they deal with him. And I think that's been a good sign. Orlando Steinhauer has had a pretty good season too, because he's lost his starting quarterback, and he's found a guy like
14-3.
I know, like how do you not say, yeah, that's a Coach of the Year candidate? Obviously a coach, and Kahari Jones has got to be thrown into the mix a little bit. Not a little bit, quite a
I mean,
bit.
in a different year, any one of those three guys is a lot.
But I don't think there's anybody in the West that really. Does anybody in the West?
Well, if Calgary finishes first, Dave Dickinson is worth talking about.
He lost his starting quarterback too. So I guess that kind of means that I don't think we won't be seeing.
But if a Dickinson wins that award, it will be Craig.
Yeah, I think it will be too. And good for him. He's earned it, and I think he's got this long-term contract. He's got his quarterback locked up for quite a while. He's got, they're going to have some free agents. Naaman Roosevelt becomes a free agent.
Shaq Evans becomes a free agent.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And the tab goes up for Cody Fajardo on the salary cap by more than $200,000, probably closer to $250.
But every team, that's kind of the going rate for quarterbacks. So it shouldn't be.
But they've got a luxury this year.
They've got a luxury. It shouldn't be a big adjustment to their quarterback getting paid quarterback money. They're going to have to find other ways to do it, and I think I'm just Jeremy O'Day. And if they had a GM of the year, and we don't have that award,
I don't know why there's not an Executive of the Year award.
No, I think
Jeremy O'Day's done an amazing job.
Yeah, but then who's Hamilton's? I forget who.
They've got the committee.
The committee, the consulting committee. So that's whoever was
Eric Tillman put a lot of that team in place.
That's true too. And don't forget, a lot of this team is still Chris Jones. I don't think we can overlook that fact that Chris Jones has brought in a lot of these guys.
And John Murphy too. John Murphy brought in a lot of those players.
I know we've said this before. We may disparage and say things about Chris Jones, but we both realize that this Chris Jones laid the foundation of this team starting when he came over in 16 after that with that huge class of free agency signed like Ed Gainey and all these guys, and they kind of didn't.
Most of them bombed.
Yeah, I know, but Ed Gainey. But you think about it, it's funny. Ed Gainey we were talking. I've kind of told him I would never talk about that East semifinal when Craig Ellingson scored that touchdown against him and he fell down. You've
talked about it again though.
Yeah, no, I did. I promised I wouldn't. But Ed Gainey is, and I don't know if Ed's had his strongest year. It's been
he's still a guy you want back there.
Yeah.
And I mean, Ed Gainey will. I think if it comes down to you need a big play from Ed Gainey. If Ed Gainey's one of your concerns, you don't have many concerns.
Exactly.
If you were drilling that deep to find a deficiency and you identify Ed Gainey as a possible deficiency, what does that say about your team?
Exactly.
I think you can turn that around.
That's a great secondary. I think, we're kind of looking at that kind of stuff. That's, Nick Marshall, Gainey, Adam, Purefoy. L.J. McRae had himself a game, 10 defensive tackles from the weak side. The ball doesn't go there very often. He was hustling around to get the tackles, gets a huge pick and that kind of stuff. So that was really kind of one of those moments that I think the secondary deserves a little bit more credit. But we've kind of a lot of kudos going around, but I guess that happens.
What do you do? I mean, and we don't get these opportunities.
Do you want to can we find a hole? Maybe. The only one, and I know it's just because, and it's not even a hole, but Brett Lowther is a bit finger crossing still, because he's not the Brett Lowther he was last year. He's automatic.
85.7 isn't bad.
I know, but that still gets him 8th or 9th in the league. 6th in the league today.
But he's 3 for 3 on game-winning kicks.
I know.
If it comes down to a game-winning kick, and Brett Lowther is standing behind the hole.
That's how bad we are trying to be unbiased. Is we're digging for something to say, yeah, this is something they got to work on, and. Maybe their return game is kind of, I don't know, when's the last time, when they had a big return, that Purefoy one against BC, they got called back.
Marcus Thigpen had a nice kickoff return to begin the game in Calgary.
Yeah.
Hey, did you notice
but he bobbled it.
Shaq Evans, the catch his first long reception against Edmonton, that was pretty much the same play that they didn't complete to start the game off in Calgary.
Right.
Same double move. Yeah. And did you notice that Cody Fajardo took a little bit off the ball? Shaq Evans probably could have got more yardage there if the pass had been thrown with more authority. But that was the same play, same move, same pretzelized defender. And Shaq Evans is wide open down the right side. They completed it this time.
That's a good point, yeah.
But I'd like to ask Cody Fajardo, did you purposely pull the string on that a little just to make sure you completed that pass?
He'd probably tell you.
And it worked. And that was a pretty significant
we forgot
game.
William Powell got over 1,000 yards again.
So if he's got a contract bonus for 1,000 yards in his contract, does he get that twice?
I don't think so.
So
another good pickup by Jeremy O'Day. We remember back to that free agent day. We're thinking, well, William Powell's a good pickup. Micah Johnson's a good pickup. Who the heck's Cody Fajardo?
Yeah,
other than the guy that scored the game-winning touchdown in the East Final that kept the Riders from going to the Grey Cup. Kind of sticks out.
Yeah, that one just kind of flew right under the radar. So much of the talk was about Zach Collaros resigning, Bo Levi Mitchell not resigning, and this franchise quarterback was just kind of. I mean, William Powell got overshadowed that day. Micah Johnson got overshadowed that day because so much of the talk was about the quarterbacking situation.
Okay. We're going to try a little bit of going. Heritage Classic filled. Good sized crowd for the stadium.
Jets won too. That was crucial.
Pat's game, good crowd. I think we could, considering the conditions.
15,000 people. That was the largest crowd to watch a junior hockey game in Regina.
That's a good crowd. What do you think Saturday's going to be like? It's going to be pretty miserable leading up to that, so that means pregame ticket sales might be a little off.
If you don't sell this one out, what does it take to sell out a regular season game?
That's what I'm thinking. Like
they're playing for first place.
Yeah, I know. So, but if you're buying a ticket,
this has happened at home.
Just think what you've had to do in Regina. Just Garth Brooks tickets, regardless of if you went.
That's country music.
I know. But then Heritage Classic tickets, Pat's
Jets
tickets.
won. That was good.
And then you got a football game now in probably cold conditions where your team's going to get first.
The Riders are playing for first place at home.
So what does it say?
How often does this happen?
What happens if it doesn't sell out? What does it say? Does it say something? The CFL has a huge problem with. There's only been rather one sellout this year.
And that's the game they're always going to sell out.
Yeah, and that's a gimme. There's not a lot of them across it. There was no way there was, whatever Edmonton said, that many people in the stands.
Was it in 29 or something?
Yeah, well, that was the announced crowd. And they all left pretty early because it was cold there too. But I hate talking about it. I hate tennis as a sign. It doesn't indicate people at home watching on TV, but that doesn't put money. Actually, it does.
But this is a historic regular season game for the
It's probably the most important game. Well, in 10 years, I guess. Would be
the home games. November 7th of 2009 was the last time. I've only seen them play for first at home once. Yeah. And I'm 55 years old. And I've been going to Rider games since the early 70s on a regular basis.
So it's a huge game. And
in 76, when they finished first, they were in Calgary.
Yeah. It's also a 2:00 kickoff. I heard, and people tell me, I know some people complain about the Heritage Classic being an 8:00 face-off. The city was buzzing. I heard downtown was just packed. Businesses gained from having that late time. 2:00, no one gains anything. You get breakfast and you go to the game and you probably go home.
But and people are saying that's a once in a lifetime thing.
Yeah.
Well, if you're looking at the Rough Riders, playing for first place at home, that for me, that's the game in 2009 still ranks as a once in a lifetime thing. So this will be a twice in a lifetime for me. And I've been following this team forever. You don't get that chance very often. There's been a lot of home playoff games, which we couldn't say once upon a time, but they've happened with some regularity. It happened last year. But playing for first place at your home stadium, if that doesn't pack the stadium, what does it take?
So what happens to this team that's rolling and doing everything well doesn't get first place? I know that's people perceive that, but that's a reality. It could happen. Does that mean they're done? Does that they still have a home playoff game, but we haven't seen
it's a letdown, but this team
they've handled adversity well, but that'd be big time adversity because all they've talked about since September is a home playoff.
It's probably not a good ticket seller for the home playoff game the following week. You've just blown your opportunity at home to clinch first place. So that's not a great marketing tool for the West semifinal. It might detract from some of the hype, and that game might feel somewhat obligatory. But guess what? What is Zach Collaros is quarterbacking the Winnipeg Blue Bombers for that game?
He's got to be.
Pretty good storyline there. How do you not keep going with him, barring an injury?
Yeah, like Chris. If you go with Chris Streveler, you're saying you're giving it up. And then Chris Streveler is a running quarterback who has to throw the ball every now and again. Zach Collaros can do, and he's going to have 3 weeks. Or 2 weeks at least to get in shape for that game. And you cross your fingers. With that shot that he took, was it McManus who hit him with that low shot that kind of grazed his head? Boy, that was just kind of scary to see that happen.
I mean, I'd love to be proven wrong on this one. And generally it's not a great feeling when your column is totally discredited. And I've written several times that Zach Collaros should not play anymore. It's a risk for him to play. It's a risk for anybody to trade for him, etc. But
see, that's why I disagree with you. I disagree
I'd love to be wrong here.
The doctors have cleared him to play. That's how I've come around to this. He is cleared to play.
Once upon a time, Buck Pierce was cleared to play.
Yeah,
Once upon a time, Matt Dunnigan was cleared to play.
I'm just saying.
We were cleared to do this podcast. Was that a good idea?
But how do you say to a guy, everything is fine, you can play, but we don't want you to play because we're afraid you're going to get hurt? That's not how football works. That's the part with getting with Zach. And I've come around to that. They've told him he could play. It's not like the Western semifinal last year where they told us he would play and he wasn't had any intention of playing.
I don't think they ever explicitly said that he would play, did they?
Well,
he was at the press conference the day before the game, which if the starting quarterback is at a press conference the day before a playoff game, chances are you would think he's going to play.
TSN had prepared all of its pregame stuff based on Zach Collaros playing. And the only thing that I remember talking to
in the meantime, they're signing Drew Tate.
Yeah, and Dave Naylor happens to bump into somebody in the hallway in the Delta, and they said, "Oh yeah, he's not playing." And Dave Naylor told me, says TSN went, whew. Like, not the fact that Dave Naylor had the scoop that now they could adjust their pregame stuff that Zach Collaros wasn't playing, which doesn't mean anything, but it still means a whole lot to the network. Yeah. And I somehow think, and I've had talked to a couple of people about this, that I think that rattled the Riders. I think being part of that overall lie, they didn't like that. They
didn't handle it well at all. It was a charade all week. And if there's uncertainty about your starting quarterback going into a playoff game, and you're playing games with that scenario, what does that say about your level of preparedness for a playoff game?
I still remember, and I've seen Brandon Labatt and Cameron Marshall and Zach all sitting at the front of the podium on the pregame day, and they don't even look at us. And they're usually just didn't have the feel, looking back, in hindsight, of course, because I've never wrong with my hindsight, that it didn't have the feel of the excitement of a home playoff game and stuff. There just seems something amiss looking back now and having seen what's happened and seen what's gone on from that time point. But, the Riders, this one they're going into, this one, the next one, there's no issues. I think if the Riders get up ahead, get a big score on the Eskimos, which is a possibility. I think the code will be yanked, and then no.
I'm not presuming anything.
No.
Strange things can happen. This is the Canadian Football League, and I go back to 1976 when Calgary had nothing to play for.
Okay.
You never really know. If you look at Rider history, nothing can be presumed.
Nothing. It's kind of like the Bills, Buffalo Bills, and all that stuff.
When the Riders finish first, generally that portends a disappointing ending to the regular season. They finished first five times since 1966. They haven't won the Grey Cup in any of those games.
I don't think this season can have a disappointing end, regardless of what have happened, the way things have gone. This is a team that's set up. We talk about this Grey Cup next year. They've created enough hype and enough excitement around there with enough young players who might still be around to create these things. This is not a disappointing season, regardless of how it ends.
Even if they finish first and then don't get to a Grey Cup?
I think even if they finish first, I think there's enough that's gone on for this season. You and I have seen many seasons that have just fallen apart. And I still remember how I felt back in June when Zach Collaros was carried off the field, helped off the field, and I thought this season was over. And from that point, they're playing for first. Came as close as they could with a first-year starter. It's not a disappointment.
But this is still the flagship franchise of the Canadian Football League. And this is a team that feels that it should be.
Oh, they should be, yeah.
They talk about sustained success.
Yeah.
This is a team that if it wins on Saturday will have 13 victories. That's the first time they will have won 13 games since the 18-game regular season was introduced in 1986. So you have your best regular season under the 18-game format. If you don't get to the Grey Cup, let alone win, how does that not classify as a disappointment, especially since that would entail a loss at home?
At home, and all that stuff is very true. I just think if you
look at 1970 and 14-2, and that's great, they set a Rider record for victories in the season. But what do people remember? They remember that they didn't get to the Grey Cup when they were 14-2.
Yeah,
so how does that not classify as a major disappointment?
I think looking at all the things, and we talk about adversities and up and downs and things that have gone their way and things that haven't gone their way. First-year head coach, first-year starting quarterback, young receivers who have caught on the game. I think it's a team that is building, and how can be disappointed in a year that's been.
But aren't we? Isn't that a July or August conversation? Are we not at the point now where they've proven they have that cred? It's no longer a real surprise that they're doing this anymore. It's an amazing story. But they're at the point now where I don't think they can settle. I don't think anybody else can settle.
I don't think they're going to settle, but I'm just saying that I think we'll look back and say this season was better.
I mean, you're going to talk about it as a success regardless.
Yeah.
But if you put an asterisk beside this season, if you're referring to it as a qualified success, is that a disappointment considering the level to which the tier to which expectations have ascended?
Yeah,
look what they've done.
The expectations are high, and we both like him. That's a Jim Hobson thing. That's a we expect to be in the playoffs, and now we expect to be in Grey Cups, and all that stuff is part of it. And I expect them. Will they be in the Grey Cup? Who knows? I think they have
probably not, because I predicted on the Waggle podcast today that they would get to the Grey Cup.
I think they would get.
I think they're going to get lethal.
They're either going to get to the Grey Cup, I think they're going to get to the Grey Cup too. I just brought up that disappointing stuff is something that we can talk about. I think they're going to get to the Grey Cup too. I'd be very surprised if you and I are in Calgary for the Grey Cup game and watching.
Well, they can't afford to feed both of us, Murr. I'm going to be eating bird seed.
That's true too.
Or you're going to be eating bird seed.
Well, I still like my burgers and stuff. I want to talk about your book. I was going to tell. I was looking through your book. I was wondering, because I'm going to feed you this. Who's the character? Who's the character that stands out when because you talk to all these people in your book? Who's the character in that people are going to say, that's kind of a strange dude?
Oh goodness. I'm gonna hold the book up here. How do you tell? How can you tell that we're not broadcasters by profession? This is my new book. It's called, well, you can read what it's called. It's 100 Cool Things About the Rough Riders. Actually, the title's a little misleading. There's 120.
Of course, because you could never limit yourself to 100.
They told me I could write. It's like potato chips. They told me I could write some sidebars. So I wrote 100 chapters and 20 little sidebars.
Of course you did.
I wish I could have included Cody Fajardo in there. I might write a column and call it the 101st chapter. Yeah. He reminds me a lot, and I wasn't alive back then, but when Glenn Dobbs was with the Rough Riders in 1951, and this player comes in and people fall in love with him instantly, and there's a Glenn Dobbs chapter in here. And if you look at, I think, characters and maybe parallels to today, I think Cody Fajardo, that's probably what Glenn Dobbs was like in 1951. This character this amazingly nice, wholesome human being coming up from the United States, and he's painting the fence with Rider fans. Now, before the 51 season, the Taylor Field fence needed painting, so all the fans grabbed buckets of paint, cans of paint, and paint brushes. They're painting the fence, and there's Glenn Dobbs painting the fence beside them. I could see Cody Fajardo doing that.
Yep.
You know, so there's a Glenn Dobbs chapter in here. If you read that, you may think, okay, maybe I'm seeing this player in a contemporary context.
So do you think this would make a good Christmas gift, Rob?
I think it would make... I should get you to promote the book. You're way more adept at this than I am. I think I promised myself I would not say this, but it really makes it a great stocking stuffer.
Is it? And I have
keep
to
feeding
admit,
me here. I'm not good at this.
It's in the special part of my house that is reserved for sitting, and it's a bathroom book. It is a. I know.
You've ruined me.
It's not a bad thing to have a book that's got short reads and stuff.
And you can open this book anywhere and find a
short read, 120 things.
See, here's number 12.
Where could people find it, Rob?
It's Davis Sanchez. When I was on the Waggle podcast today, Davis ordered the book on Amazon. It's apparently available November 5th. It's at McNally Robinson in Saskatoon. I'll be doing a book signing there on November 27th at 7 p.m. So I hope to meet any Saskatoonians who come out that night, and it should be available at all fine bookstores in early November. That's our producer, Austin Davis, by the way.
How many books have you written now?
3.2.
3.2.
I did a book in the 66
Did you
team.
include your books, 100 Things to Read Before You Die? In there?
There's an extensive bibliography in here. So I did the 66 book, the 89 book. I did a portion of the Rider history book that came out in 2010, and now this one. It should be, I'm told November 5th is the date.
So. Look forward to that.
Murray, I know you're about to sign off here. Is the team practicing outside or inside?
Indoors all week. Indoors.
What difference do you think that will make, if any?
Oh, they're going to get a lot more work done. They wouldn't get any work done now. Today would just be fighting the conditions. I've seen that happen in the past. But they'll probably have their walkthrough on Friday outdoors. But they also can't get in the stadium because it's still being torn down from the Heritage Classic. So they were going to be outdoors at the U of R regardless. The fact that it's weather's bad and they moved to Affinity Place means they don't have to have the bus ride back and forth to the U of R to do their stuff. So it's indoors if they want that. So I go, that's once again Austin thinking better questions.
Austin Davis.
Can I pump my own tires a little bit?
Sure.
Day 75, a Grey Cup fit up, 25 days left to go to be in shape.
I'm hoping to make it to day one.
Yeah, hoping to make it.
Regimen.
It's been, this is going to be the tough part. This is all uphill from here, from all the things that are going on in my life and in football. So it's going to be interesting part. It's a pretty cool community to be part of. So I'm glad I got involved. Anyway, we ready?
Do it.
Sign us off. Where's the theme song?
If you enjoy the podcast, please leave a review and a 5-star rating. It helps us grow the podcast. You can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to send us a question, you can email Rob at rvanstone@postmedia.com and we'll read it on the show. You can follow Rob on Twitter at Rob Vanstone, or Murray, or myself, sorry, at Murray LP, also on Twitter.
And please buy my book. It's
Just,
fine stock.
just read his book. It's a fine stocking stuff, and it'll be for many Christmases to come. And stick it in your bathroom.
With that glowing endorsement, I sign off respectfully. For our producer, Austin Davis, for Murray McCormick, I'm Rob Vanstone. Thanks for doing this. We'll do this again next week with certainly lots to discuss for the 75th edition of the Rider Rumblings video podcast. Thanks for your time today, and take care.